Okay guys, today's video is going to be split into two very distinct sections. The reason for that I shall explain now. Games Workshop very kindly, sent me all of the new Cathay stuff that is being released in the next couple of weeks. And of course, I'm so excited for it. You guys know that I champion the old world to the nth degree. I give you guys a video every single week on it. People ask me on Wednesday, where the hell is my old world video, thinking I forgot about it? No, it's actually just on Saturday this week. And obviously I was dying to get stuck in and deliver all of that to you. The first model I decided to do for the old world and for Cathay is the Cathayan Sentinel. This thing is absolutely incredible looking. But when I tell you it was one of the most horrible kits to construct that I have ever gotten my hands on, I cannot reiterate that enough. It was horrible, horrid from start to finish. And to give you some sort of context, I've constructed Titans, Townars, anything you can think of, I've built and painted it. Like everything. This room is stacked full of complicated miniatures, and I usually enjoy the process from start to finish. I am not by any means an amateur when it comes to constructing miniatures, but this was a whole different level. So much so that I just feel impelled to tell you guys about it and warn you about this kit. If you're going to get it, you need to know a few different bits and pieces to make an educated decision as to what you want to do with it. I know it's rambling, but I'm getting annoyed at it again because it was such an awful experience. So here's the deal. The first part of the video, I'm going to show you what went wrong with the construction side of it, how the instructions work. I'm going to show you all the mistakes that existed inside the instructions, which there are many. And then after that, I'm going to show you how to paint it. So if you are not interested in any way, shape or form in the bad bits of it, and you just want to jump to the painting bit of it, I will leave a timestamp which you can jump to as of right now, and I will just be holding a fully built miniature ready to put paint on. That is up to you if you want to do that. And if that is, goodness to you. Okay, for the rest of you, let's dive in and have a look at this awful set of instructions. Okay guys, straight off the bat, this is the quality of the instructions. Black and white cutaway pieces, absolutely shocking. And the reason that this is shocking is the fact that it's such a modern kit. And think about it like this. This is the Knight Porphyrion from Forge World. Forge World used to be the ones that we laughed at for having bad instructions because they didn't have instructions. They just had the parts list and then what the model looked like put together. Now we get a parts list and then a color step-by-step guide how to assemble all the different panels, really close up, really like sharp images telling you exactly what to do and how to do it. For a big, complicated, expensive miniature, this is what I expect. Not this. This is, even when I got to this section on the first foot, I did not know how these parts assembled onto this chain, and you cannot tell from there. They also have these ridiculous markings, which is the symbol for paint these parts before assembly, and they are riddled throughout this book. I need to tell you now, do not even attempt to paint anything before assembling. You will not be able to put it together at the end, and all the parts they tell you to paint beforehand, you cannot see a single inch of any of those parts during the final assembly. They're all completely covered up, like ridiculously. And then I got to somewhere like, I don't know, this. This is the shin guard, kneecap guard or whatever for one of the feet. And in the instructions, they tell you to push it to this part and glue it here. It does not snap, it does not click, it does not do anything with this particular foot section. It just does not work. I sat there for about 5 minutes trying to find the exact point before I committed to glue. I soon realized then that there was a little ball and socket kind of joint or a plug and pin joint on this leg part, which this bit glued onto beautifully, and then this could then glue onto that. So whoever made these instructions decided to try and put it the other way around. I have absolutely no idea. Also, if I can just say, whoever was the person in charge of cutting this miniature up for going onto sprues, I don't know what they were talking about. Like, this is all for one leg. All of these parts is for one leg. Then you duplicate the whole thing again, and it's just so convoluted, the sections and stuff. We move on to the skirt section, which was thoroughly the most irritating, because they tell you to put on, the skirt section is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12 pieces for his skirt. and they all overlap and they all are supposed to kind of click together. And I swear to God, there isn't a single piece that I put onto that model that I was confident was in the right position. It just doesn't line up correctly. It's awful. It's the same with this section. I don't know why it tells you to put this section on, which is like the kind of interior of the back plate. And then there's these two sections which are supposed to get glued onto that separately, I might add. It says glue one on, then glue the other one on. And then they like, it's ridiculous. I couldn't figure this out for another like 5 or 10 minutes. Eventually, if I just glued this part and this part together, then you could kind of figure out where they click onto this, and then they get completely covered up by the other panels. By the end of it, this is what it looks like. And that whole section is inside here. They're once again telling you to paint this before assembly, and see these little grates here on the chest? That is the only part that you're going to see through it. So once again, I don't know what they're talking about. I'll give you an example again, if I can find my one. 1 second. There you go. There's my finished one. In between these swirls is the part they're telling you to paint before assembly. Why? Why are they doing this to us? Like, seriously. We jump on to this piece. There's a piece missing here. When you make this whole hand assembly, you will notice that the piece of the finger between kind of last knuckle and first knuckle is missing on the miniature. I thought maybe when you glue the hand onto the shaft of this spear that it makes sense and it clicks on. Nope, the instructions just does not tell you to assemble it. So part 101 is meant to be glued on here, and that will make that hand complete for gluing onto the pole arm, and then you can kind of do final assembly. Also, when it gets to the point of putting on the blades to the pole arm, it says use part 163 and 162. Then you jump down here and it says use parts 163 and 162 again. There is not two sets of these. These are misnumbered, and you should use the opposite numbers of these for gluing it on. So once again, they have failed us. Look how many parts are for the arms. For the arms. You could have each of those arms in 2 pieces. A big line right down the middle. We can fill those gaps in ourselves. Absolutely no problem. There is no need for this. And then don't even get me started on putting this belt on. His belt is in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 pieces. And once again, I could not make this belt line up properly at all. That's not connected correctly, and you just slide it in and around, and I just couldn't get it to sit exactly the way they want it to. I think that when this model is constructed, it is one of the finest looking miniatures Games Workshop has ever done. Surely one of the nicest miniatures for the old world that there will ever be. This whole range is. But the level that they have put into the breaking apart of this miniature and these disgraceful instructions cannot be overstated. Like, I need people to understand before they purchase this model that it is going to be an awful experience doing it. Once it's built, it's a joy to paint because it's just a big stone construct. But yeah, I'm sorry about that rant. I know it was a lot longer than I expected it to be, but I just needed for you guys to understand that point. And if you've skipped it, you've skipped it. And if you've seen it, you've seen it. That's for you to decide. Let me know in the comments what you think. Do you think I went overboard? Do you think I should shut my mouth and get on with it? Or are you grateful for the information here? Let me know. Okay, now we're going to jump over to the actual painting side of this miniature. So I quickly just want to make 2 more points about this kit, and then we can move on to the painting. One is, I am not a hater. I am not someone who makes videos, bashes on things. You can go through my backlog of over 1,000 videos. You won't find anyone in there. I'm not the kind of person to make those kind of cringy thumbnails about what they hate and how they hate it for every single video just to get a bit of clout. That's not me. So hopefully that gives a little bit of a tangency, if that's even a word, to what I'm saying. And 2, if there is anybody from Games Workshop who ends up watching this video, I challenge you to get, say, 6 people together that you know in the business who are competent hobbyists, sit down around a table with 6 of these kits and record them building it and just find out their experience and report back if you could. That would be fantastic, because I genuinely think people are unaware of what this kit is like. Okay, so moving on from that and moving on to, if we just cut the whole front bit out and we start with this amazing miniature, it's time to start painting it. Now, painting this miniature is both an easy thing and not an easy thing, because first you have to decide which kind of Sentinel it is, because there's in fact 5 different versions. You can have terracotta, jade, obsidian, granite, and warpstone. Those are the 5 that you can do. The one you get for free is the terracotta one. The brown one is 0 extra points. Every other one is an additional amount of points on top of its original points. And obviously they get an extra bunch of special rolls. I'm going to paint my one up as the jade one because I like the look of it the most. But in game terms, I'm probably going to run it as the one which is warpstone. I think I can get away with that because it's still going to be a green one. It's just not going to be as toxic green looking as the other ones. In game terms, for me, I get magical attacks, and everyone that is in base contact with me, every unit in base contact with me that is the enemy, is -1 toughness, which is an incredible thing if you wombo combo him with a unit of the new Sentinel cavalry or something like that. They charge in, this guy charges in as well. Suddenly the thing you're fighting is -1 toughness. Everyone can attack, causing much more damage and being much more toxic. Awesome. Even if you think about this guy fighting other large characters, dragons and stuff like that, he does have the monster killer keyword when he uses the kind of crazy strike with his weapon. Then you take that in effect with their -1 toughness, and the other enemy monsters are in serious trouble as well. So, okay. So you will notice that the first thing I did was dry brush the entire model with Caliban green, a really dark, rich green. We started from a matte black spray. And then after that, like I said, we just started the dry brush process. We're just going to do 4 layers of dry brushing. Caliban green, warpstone green, then we're going to go to moot green, and then we're going to go for pallid witch flesh, which is, I know, is a strange kind of combination. But as you can see the dry brushing going on, I'm getting lighter and lighter with it as I go. And I'm just going to add loads of different tones and variations to that green. I want it to look very mystical, very old, it's going to look so cool. Originally, when I started painting it, I was considering just doing it as the kind of toxic green warpstone style one. And that is one of the main reasons I went up through this palette of green colors. But in the end, I really did want to add that little bit of tinge of jade to it, which we're nearly there. And that's where I decided to add in that light touch of a dry brush of pallid witch flesh, which I think transforms it from that kind of warpstone look to that kind of jade look. And you guys can, of course, be the judge of that in a moment. But as it stands, this is it with 3 dry brushes in. I really like the results so far. For all its troubles with building, it is an absolute joy to paint because all it is a couple of dry brushes and you get this monster on the tabletop. Here is the pallid witch flesh going on. As you can see, I'm being extremely light with it here, just trying to catch these sharp edges and just like the very tips of areas. A little bit across that awesome kind of, there's a word for that kind of segmented armor, like dragon tooth armor or upscale mail armor or something like that. And it does transform the kind of toxic green looking warpstone color, I think, into a really nice jade tone. Now you will see in a moment when I show you the whole piece, but I think it turns out really well and I'm really pleased with it. After that, we are of course going to add some texture paste to the base. People might be wondering why I have an MDF base instead of the base provided. All of my old world armies are on MDF bases, so they sit flatter to the tabletop. And then when they're in units with an MDF, like movement tray and stuff like that, they all blend in together. It looks like one seamless battlescape that the whole unit is walking across. It looks like a diorama. I love it, and I'm going to continue doing that forevermore. After the brown is fully dry from the texture paste, we're just going to quickly dry brush that with Ryza Rust. And then we're going to jump to Ushabti Bone and give that another light dry brush across the top of it. This is the same kind of brown textured base that I do for, once again, all of my old world armies, so they all kind of match in together. The only ones I'm going to do slightly different are things like dwarves and night goblins. I believe they're going to be in kind of cave networks and stuff like that, so a grey base for them. The Ushabti base once again, or the Ushabti Bone once again, adds just a little bit of more natural tones to the base. It moves it away from that kind of chocolatey orange brown to a really nice natural kind of pallor. Okay, there's lots of like ribbons and stuff or parchment hanging off of this guy, and it's a very quick set to do that as well. We're going to go for more gassed bone. After the more gassed bone has been applied to all the ribbons, and trust me, they're everywhere, try and find them all. We're going to add a little coat of Seraphim Sepia to that, all of those parchmenty bits. And then we're going to go in with Ushabti Bone for the last highlight on them, just to touch it all up a little bit. And this will make all those parchments stand out. All the string and colliery bits for holding all those parchment bits on, I just went in with a bit of Black Templar contrast paint and painted those up again. The dry brushing that we did across this model actually ended up being a perfect color for all those gemstones, because we do want them to be green gemstones for that kind of warpstoney mix. So I really like that. So all I did was added a coat of art coat to all of the gemstones we'd already done. I could have done them a separate color, you know, bright red or yellow or orange, but no, I quite like the green. I think that I don't want to distract from the armor too much with any other bright colors. Here I am applying super glue, and I'm just sporadically pouring it all over the base. And then I'm throwing some normal flock on top of that. This kind of drip method for large bases really works because it acts as a really natural. It's really hard not to do patterns when you're doing big bases like this. The human mind wants to do patterns, and I find by just dripping the super glue on, throwing some flock on, pushing it down a little bit, and then knocking the excess off, you do get this really natural, awesome green base. And with that, we have our finished Cathayan Sentinel done in jade / warpstone colors. Really pleased to have this model in my collection, fully done and ready to be pushed into battle alongside the rest of the range. As you've seen in the beginning of this video, I have many other kits lined up to do, and I promise that I will be doing all of them. I've already cracked open the instructions for the Sky Lantern, and they are much better than the instructions for this. So that's one of the kits I'm hopeful to do next week for you guys and show you how that awesome kit comes together. And then obviously some infantry and some cavalry and characters and cannons and all those other bits and pieces you need to know how to do in order to get a Cathayan army on the table very quickly. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this. I know it was a very different video to normal. If you have stuck around for the entire 16-17 minutes of it, thank you so much. If you skipped around at the start, that's okay too. Hopefully you enjoyed the painting bit of it, and you can see how a Sentinel is put on the tabletop. Thank you guys so much. I'll see you in the next one.